Hello and welcome to Flame On. I am Brian. I am your host for this queer, allied, everybody under the sun interview series that we call Rainbow Spotlight. We do this every week on Mondays, though right now it's a little hit and miss because of life, post-pandemic life. But I am so happy, so thrilled to be back here with you all because my dear friend and colleague from years ago now and since, like all of the adventures we've had, all of the things that we've done together. I am so happy to have Miss Cat Blackard. Thank you for joining us.
I'm really happy to be here, Brian. It's been a minute since I've been on Flame On. I think the last time was your 100th episode, maybe.
Wait. Didn't we know? You know what? At the beginning of the pandemic, we actually did a Zoom-based, I think it was Zoom, may have been StreamYard, live thing. And you were on for that, if I'm not mistaken. So,
oh gosh, possibly.
But close. Yeah, close. So for those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you don't, if you're a fan of Flame On, you should know Cat. If you are someone who does any kind of podcast listening of audio dramas, who has ever been on the Consequence of Sound website, I don't know, all of these things. Or if you're in Orlando and you don't know who Cat Blackard is, I don't know what you've been doing with your life. But for the better part of, how long is Nerdy Show is over 10 years, right? Like 11?
Yeah, it started in 2009. So.
Oh my gosh, at 12. Wow.
12. Yeah.
Cat was and is still the creator, one of the co-hosts, original OG co-hosts, and like built the media empire that was Nerdy Show and is now Omniverse, of which we are, of course, a part. And so much more. Like I said, Consequence of Sound, Lightning Dogs. We're going to talk about all this thing. Cthulhu. I almost said Cthulhu Mystery Hour.
The Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program.
Thank you. God, I can't ever get that name right.
Well, I mean, it is. When we came up with that name, it was purely, we thought it was going to be a mini series and that we could be like, really hokey about it. But it is a mouthful, and I have regrets. But I
never struggle with a mouthful.
Accidents.
I should be able to handle a mouthful, but this is how we are.
Wow.
But so Cat is still in Orlando, and I have left the fair city of sunshine and DeSantis and Mickey Mouse and whatever other nonsense to come way out here to Seattle. And so this is actually, we've talked a little bit, but we haven't really caught up. And one of the things that I want to start with this. One of the things that Cat and I have in common is a deep, deep love for synthesis, electronic music. Kind of like really old school stuff, not as much the new stuff, but and one of the treasures of my life has been to go to Asheville first and then Durham, North Carolina with Cat. 3 times I think we went to for Moog Fest.
Together?
Is that
at
together?
least 3 times together, yeah.
And you of course have been several more times. But like let's just start there because it's so interesting. So if you don't know Moog is this synthesizer company founded by Bob Moog, and famous for very, what do they call it? East Coast sound, electronic, subtractive synthesis, if you're into, the deeper terms. But Moog, as an institution, has outlived Bob, thankfully, and has thrived, I think. And so they have this electronic music festival once a year, or they had, I should say, up until 2019.
It's complicated.
Yeah, and what's funny to me about Moog Fest is the fact that it like kind of died, and then 2020 wouldn't have happened anyway, probably, right? Because of the pandemic.
No doubt, yeah.
So anyway, let's just talk about our mutual love of electronic music, the adventures we had. I mean, you'd got to do some really cool stuff up there, talking to people like Janelle Monáe. I don't know. Tell me one of your favorite moments being a journalist and getting to explore that space with all those amazing creators.
Well, so Moogfest is this, to give it a little bit more context, Moogfest is a music festival and also a symposium of like science, technology, and future thought. So during the day, there's all these lectures and different immersive experiences, and during the night, it's like a full-blown electronic music festival, though a bit more It's not your average like EDM rave. It's not
No
ultra.
Coachella. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit of it, but not
Yeah.
all the way. It's a little bit more I don't know, boutique is really the right.
Mhm.
It's the most boutique festival I've ever been to in my life. And it is specifically Brian and I's shit. Like that's really like the ins and outs of it. Like it's sort of place where say Brian Eno will give a keynote speech, and also they'll have a big discussion with all the people who wrote Futurama. And
That's right.
and in one of my favorite memories is when I watched a piece of performance art between the world's first governmentally recognized cyborg, Neil Harbison, who he has a sort of the cybernetic extension of his body that perceives. He can't perceive color, so this thing perceives color as sound and vibrates it into his like brain. So if he's looking, say, through a room, like this chromatic background on the video screen here would be like this, I don't know, probably a, a xylophone of sound. And so he did this piece of performance art where he was painting the nails of a Catalonian folk singer, the toenails of a Catalonian folk singer,
Yes.
and then using his like cybernetic extension to, or cybernetic appendage, I think is right what he would prefer it be called, to play in like this person's toenails as they're being painted while the Catalonian folk singer like improvises guitar to go with the sound of his own toenails. That's Moogfest in a nutshell right there.
I had forgotten all the details of that. I definitely remember Neil and his appendage, and you telling me about them because I didn't go to the actual performance. That's the other thing about Moogfest. There's so much going on at the same time that you can never see all of it.
Yeah. And we did some extensive coverage on Nerdy Show of our time there, including I did some field recording of that session. So if you want to hear what that crazy thing sounds like, well, one, maybe somebody was recorded on YouTube. I don't know, but I did record audio of it, and it is in an episode of Nerdy Show. So I don't know what year that was.
Oh
but
man, 2014, I think was the Asheville one. I don't think that was Durham yet.
No, that was Durham.
So, it was Durham? Okay, then it was probably
Durham.
2016, I think, or 17. Anyway, or no, yeah, anyway. So yeah, we did a lot of great field recording. We did some podcasting after the fact, talking about our observations, you and your brother Jonathan and I. And you got to just do so many cool things there. And I was so lucky. I mean, I felt so privileged that you had me with you, to witness and experience and share this festival. So I hope. Oh, good.
I think we're an amazing team because you have all of the technical knowledge of synthesis, and I just have this weird like layman appreciation of, or layperson appreciation. I guess that's the appropriate whatever.
Yeah.
Gender, fuck gender. I like I love music. I love listening to music. I love the poetry of music. I know how to write about it in an abstract sense, but I can't write about it really truly in a technical sense. So when I had Brian Pittard in my cadre, I knew that I was able to provide a full force, full spectrum appraisal of what was happening there, and I could always rely on your expertise to help me actually say what I mean.
You're way too kind, but I appreciate it. And actually, it's funny because you are the reason.
Those are all facts.
You are the reason that I got back into it, because I had put all of my toys away for years after I did that in college, and then you dragged me. You invited me, and I flew willingly. To Moogfest, and now I am like I always talk about this on camera, but I never show it. I am sitting here staring at this giant modular rig that I have accumulated because of you and Moogfest. So I do appreciate that so much. But so and I want to talk about your journalism, because you are a very, very, very good. So I'm gonna give you a compliment by using the most boring, banal terms I can. You're an amazing storyteller. Your competency of language, the way you take the reader and listener through the journey of your story is really compelling. And I highly encourage any of you to go back and find some of the just nonfiction journalism, because you cover festivals a lot. You've covered a lot of festivals, and one of my favorite pieces of yours was the David Bowie eulogy that you wrote. And I think I even proudly shared it to as many people as I could, because it captured so perfectly thoughts I was having about Bowie, but also the aspect of the fact that Bowie is like eternal, and sort of even the sort of conspiracy theories at the time, or the narrative that he set out and left, that kind of implied that he was, going to come back or come again someday. So, I mean, please, it's a lot of that's still Consequence of Sound. You just have to probably find it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you search my name, Cat Blackard, and Consequence of Sound, you'll find an article that I've written, and if you click on my name, then you'll find the database of everything that I've written for that website. So I don't work for them anymore. I was for like over a decade. I was a staff writer. I was their art director. I was their podcast network manager. But I've since like moved on, and they're But I still will. I'm not a full-time journalist anymore. I'm a full-time creator now. I'm a fiction writer and other things. But and it is very liberating to not be beholden to, say, the news cycle, which I do not want to have any part of ever again, ever. But I do want to do like investigative and exploratory journalism of media that I find beautiful and inspiring, because that's what I do.
Well, and it's such a cool progression in some ways to go. And you've always been a fiction and nonfiction storyteller, so it's not like a really progression. But so many amazing writers kind of cut their teeth in the journalism world and the transition into the creative space and all that. But I mean, you've jumped back and forth throughout your career, and it's really cool. I think it's one of the things that I always love about you is that you don't accept limits. You're happy to defy all of them, and to reinvent yourself, and to strike out on any direction that you want and that you are passionate about, and that always has inspired me. So specifically, another direction that you're going that's totally a different one is the work you have been doing with Omniverse in audio dramas. And I cannot remember. So we've been doing Flame On since for about 10 years. And when we started Flame On, it was because Nerdy Show existed, and Nerdy Show had been going several years prior, as we just discussed. But at what point during the time that you were doing like the pop culture roundups, for Nerdy Show, did you start to go into that audio drama fiction? It was Dungeons and Doritos, would be my guess, right?
Right. Our Dungeons and Doritos is and was an actual play podcast that we started same year we started Nerdy Show, just at the end of the year 2009. Before actual play, which means like live tabletop role playing, before it was a gleam in the internet's eye, that like we were one of the first groups that was actively doing it in a big, loud way. And it was, like everything else in my career, a total accident. It was just, wouldn't it be funny if an episode of Nerdy Show was just us playing Dungeons and Dragons? And that turned into the most popular thing we ever did. So we kept doing it, and it had a spin-off series. So that was originally just pure actual play. It was edited, but it was us at the table, doing performances in character and cracking jokes and whatever else. But it did evolve into an audio drama, and kept evolving, and became the basis for all the work that we do now, like doing high production value cinematic audio drama pieces.
So yeah, I mean, I remember the early days. I remember going to MegaCon and having that panel where you didn't dress up, but I believe I think one of our mutual friend John Hex Carter did his was it VMAC?
Yeah, he cosplayed as his character VMAC.
Yeah, like, and this is, oh God, what year was that we did that panel? Was that 2011?
That would be 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look back at sort of the landscape of the time, podcasts had not really taken off like they have certainly now. Audio dramas were not prevalent. I mean, there were some out there, of course, but very, very few compared to again now. And the crossover in the D&D space, podcasting, and then media, D&D popularity was not at this crazy epics that it is now. Like, so in many ways, do you feel like we were cool before it was cool? I mean, like, we did all these cool things that eventually everybody picked up on, but we kind of like were Moses, and we what I mean, like, we paved the way, but we
I don't lose any sleep over it, but we've always kind of done things that were a bit audacious at the time. And I suppose the one thing that's always, when you were talking about all the things that I do, I'm really glad it looks that way from the outside. So on the inside, I'm like, I'm spinning all these plates all the time. Someone please stop me. It's a lot, and so it's hard to do. Something I always tell myself is I want to do fewer things better, because I am inclined to do a lot of things okay. And really, it's, when someone focuses in on one thing and gets devoted to doing that one thing really well, they can get a sustainable level of success in doing that. And success is an abstract thing and isn't necessarily the same thing to any one person. But it would be good to have more of a livable income from doing something. And when you spread yourself so thin, that becomes relatively impossible if you don't have a good basis.
So
So,
much.
I mean, like, we've been doing a lot of exciting things over the years, but well, I mean, transition ties into a lot of this, because throughout most of my career, I didn't know who I was. And that, in a lot of ways, limited my capacity to feel like I had any agency over my life, especially when everything, including Nerdy Show, was a complete accident that I just kind of went with. And, I can take the credit of, I know that my own, like, gumption and talent and inability to, I don't know, like, my just, I don't know, the thing that I do where I have a crazy idea and for some reason see it to fruition. Whatever that is, I know that is, that was genuine. That was always a part of me. And that's why we are what we are. And we did what we did. And that we have a incredible, like, group of folks who have been with us, like, engaging with our material the whole time. Like the Nerdy Show and Omniverse family of like fans and listeners and folks are incredible. Like, we have an amazing community, many of whom have been with us forever.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that it really was so cool. And I saw it more with the Discord. Like the Facebook stuff, I never really dug into. I followed it, but I just didn't keep up with it. The Discord, though, when that really started taking off a couple years ago, I was like, wow, all of these people. And I saw names that I recognized from back in the Facebook and prior. And I was like, these people are really loyal. And it's like, you hear about musicians or a musician's musician or a band's favorite band, like NRBQ is a great example. A lot of people have never heard of NRBQ, unfortunately.
I don't know what that is.
So, well, okay, right. So if you ask like someone who's like a really good rock, jazz, whatever musician, and they're like, oh, so tell me some of your favorite bands that no one's heard of. NRBQ is at the top of most of their lists, because they are just one of those bands that has an intensely loyal following. They are really ahead of their time. They do some really out there stuff, but they never, got that media attention that, they, I think, deserve. And same with us. But yet our fan base is so loyal and so supportive. And you are a cornerstone of that, because like you just talked about, you have this ability to manifest like thoughts and just crazy ideas and parts of, just nothing, the ether, into reality. It's like what Wendy Carlos used to call realization, right? It's you're realizing this sound that is in your head, and you want it to sound like a flute, but you have to do it through all these circuits and all these crazy, circuitry to try to elicit the sound of a flute. You can just pick up a flute, but no, that's too easy. You got to realize it. You got to conjure it, right?
You evoking Wendy Carlos to help explain the way my brain works is I'm not worthy, but I'll take it. That's incredible. I love her so much.
I like the idea. I like thinking about the things we're talking about as far as realizing stuff. And I have a similar small amount of that in my life and, things, but like you continually do that. And one of the things you've done and reinvented and sort of manifested is your own journey. And you've gone from one person that I knew way back to someone who is the same 100%, but transformed in a way, in a beautiful way that I would never have expected, but didn't really know. And so like, I'd love to hear you explain, because I am not going to do a good job, of how you that kind of begun to realize that you were trans and how you began to, take that path and sort of evolve into who you are now?
Well, it is complicated. Like you mentioned, Hex dressing up as VMAC to play his character from Dungeons and Doritos at the convention. Well, I never felt the agency to do anything similar to that because my character, Jamela, was a female dragonborn. Well, is a female dragonborn, and I got really touchy as someone who thought they were cisgender. With the notion of like I never wanted anybody to see me perform as Jamela because I wanted her to exist in her own world and there to be no association with this male presenting person behind the scenes. And so eventually what I did was I through the graces of our community crowdfunded the construction of a puppet of Jamela, and at a convention like a couple years later wore a like black bodysuit to hide myself and just let the puppet be that. And that is all to say that like uh I was always very, very trans, and like most folks, I did not realize the extent of it. Like I was experiencing a kind of dysphoria for my dragon, who was a lady, being associated with me, who didn't realize I was also a lady. And it was odd though, because I from 2012 through to or 2010 really. Well, so I lived 7 years as a non-binary person, not accepting the fullness of who I was because it was an easier solution, because being born white and male, as far as anybody, like that assignment, and like with a degree of privilege like that is a weird gilded cage that makes it really hard to step out from. What's more, there were a lot of like media and everything else was presenting like the idea of the trans woman was someone who was like attracted to men and was a woman, on the inside, as they used to say. There was basically I didn't have any trans role models at all, and I didn't dig deep enough or know that I should dig deep enough to find that out about myself, because I was always like, well, I'm attracted to women, so I can't possibly be trans, or I don't have a problem with my anatomy and therefore I can't possibly be trans. And that is not true. None of that is true. And so it took me a long time to peel back those layers. Even like existing as a non-binary person was a necessary stepping stone, I suppose, for my psyche to get used to the concept. But it's a long time to be living in half measures. And I feel like, in spite of how bombastic my career might seem, I actually got pretty good at living my life in half measures and not going all the way. Like, it's kind of surprising the degree to which I will take all kinds of risks, but didn't know how to take that one. So I eventually stepped into that, and there was a lot of honestly, it was a really spiritual evolution for me that allowed that to happen. I slipped deeper into explorations of consciousness. I tried out sensory deprivation tanks. I got even deeper into yoga than I had before. And then one day I literally, like in a completely innocuous setting, out of the blue, had a vision where I saw myself as myself, and it was visceral and a lived experience. And I'd never had any kind of out-of-body experience before. There were no substances involved. It was just me seeing myself, and it was completely transformative. And I came out of that like not 100% sure how to process it, but knowing that it was really beautiful. And then through the next year, like the months that followed, started dipping my toe deeper into the occult, and also creating my character for the Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program Series 2, Estelle Thorpe, and all the time saying like, oh, I just want to see if I can like, convincingly portray a woman. And I'm just I don't know, I'm just looking into witchcraft to like research this lesbian cat worshipping character that's totally not oh gosh, it's me. I created this is who I am. I'm just playing myself. Kind of. So I basically, which is to say, use tabletop role playing as a method for sort of weather ballooning um, the change I wanted to see in myself. And by the end of that year, I was like, I'm still non-binary, but I don't want to take off my clothes and stop being able to be represented as me. I want to feel in between. And then as soon as I got hormones in my body, I was like, no, I'm a woman. I'm a woman. It's fine. Yeah. Like
I
it's
remember I was there. I was so privileged, and you've taught me so much. Honestly, you were probably the first close friend that I had that was transgender that I got to see the go through the transition from end to end. Right. You taught me so much, and I remember the joy in your voice and in the pitch of your voice, but also just the joy in your voice when you started on the hormones. And you just transformed right in front of me, and it was so beautiful. I love your journey. I love that you used fiction and role playing and all of this to conjure, to sort of give you the building blocks. And that's, I think, so important. And you talked about the fact that we didn't have good representation growing up, and like looking around now. I don't know if you've seen the Blues Clues with Nina West,
I haven't seen
Pride
it. I've heard
Parade.
about it.
Oh my God, Brandon played this. My boyfriend played this for me last night, and I admit it probably needs an edit, only in the sense that it's a long segment, but it is so inclusive. They made it a point to leave nobody out.
That's
From
awesome.
each little parade, each little float that they do in the parade to the end where they all come, have like a group. It is amazing. And this is the kind of representation, if we had when we were growing up, I know it would have helped my journey coming out as a gay man.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would have helped you to better understand and see the people who out there resembled you, and were like, that would have been so transformative for you. But you still got there. And that's what's
Eventually,
amazing.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, granted, I don't, I can't even fucking imagine transitioning in like the 90s. Like,
Ugh.
kudos to anyone who did it. Like, wow.
Well, back to like Wendy Carlos back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
I
I was thinking of
mean,
my own life. But yeah, I mean, the history of trans folks in the past 100 years is buck wild. And let me recommend the incredible trans history podcast, One from the Vault. It is a absolutely unprecedented journey through just mind-blowing trans stories of all sorts, and really provides a necessary perspective on the different journeys and people whose daringness has facilitated the any capacity for there to be prominence of transgender people in our culture.
oh, definitely going to be checking that out. I love Disclaimer. That was eye-opening just from the Hollywood perspective,
Oh,
of
Disclosure.
disclosure,
Yeah.
disclosure, disclaimer, close. But Disclosure was amazing. I highly recommend that. Of course, there's so many great shows now. Pose has been epic and transformative in a lot of stories. There's just so much. I mean,
Steven Universe, one of the
oh my
queerest names
God,
on television.
Steven Universe. Let's talk about that. So Steven Universe is, and Blue's Clues as well. These are younger properties. Not that adults wouldn't. Lots of adults I know enjoy Steven Universe, but like these kids out there are seeing this representation, and Steven Universe, all of representation in ways that aren't just like, oh God, what were those shows we used to watch that had like the obvious message at the end? It's like The More You Know.
Like G.I. Joe and
Yes, and they tack it on and make it like beat you over. Like, they're not doing that. They're making entertaining content with these very, very real stories dressed up in genre.
heartfelt
And
connections.
heartfelt. Oh God, so much. Rebecca Sugar is I can't wait to see what she does next. I'm assuming she's kind of put Steven Universe down for now, at least to see what next comes next. But anyway, yeah, I yes, absolutely. All of this is so good. We're in a golden age of that kind of content. But to back to like, Call of Cthulhu Mystery Hour, some
That's
of the
really
work.
funny. Like, this is soft correction, mystery program, but like people do it all the time. one of my girlfriends does it. Like it's like, I guess that's the show's name. I mean, like, I don't know. The episodes aren't always an hour. But I should clearly people think that it's that, so maybe I should like figure out what that means. Or maybe it's like some kind of overlapping reality and like there is like another
See,
version.
I'm all about the parallel realities overlapping, because they're the whether it's the Berenstein Bears and the Mandela effect, like whatever that is, a glitch in the matrix, the universe is simulation, and we're just overlapping servers, whatever. It is profoundly a thing. But like you are crafting, and we're going to talk about TRANScend as well. Like you are adding to this corpus of these programs in fiction and in TRANScend nonfiction. And so I'd love to know more about sort of like where you see as a content creator, like how much of yourself and your representation or other representations do you find a way to put into your work, or is it just organic to just you writing about like what you know?
Well, one of the first things was I learned a lot of lessons from doing my character Estelle in the second series of the Call of Cthulhu mystery program. Um, and is that character was an indulgence. Before then, I had always been like, all right, how am I going to take myself out of my comfort zone now? But in that, I personified kind of the change that I wanted to see in the world. I wanted to create a empowered lesbian character in that time period that could be authentic to that time period in that world, while also being authentic to herself, and also what I wanted to see from her and the world that I wanted her to have. And even not just her, but also her partner Anjana. Um, and that's their story is really important to me, and it's been amazing how important it's been to other folks as well. So but in doing that, I was like, I felt that I'd been really indulgent, because I just did something that I thought would be nice to see. And something about the way that I was like trained to write by like, teachers and professors and stuff, like just kind of beat that joy out of me. I was always trying to like challenge myself and be uncomfortable, instead of like writing actually not necessarily what I know, but like what I wanted to see. And like and fiction should be in so many ways like an opportunity to like a practice in seeing. And so now a lot of my work is based in like the knowledge that my indulgence is not only like a freeing practice for me to like enjoy what I'm doing, but also that those paths that I take can be meaningful to other people. And I should like, and basically it basically boils down to like, trust your heart, which is really good advice. But really hard advice to take sometimes.
Oh, so hard. Like there have been so many times in my life where it's like, no. I find all of the reasons to not.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like good reasons. They're not like just, oh, you're scared, or oh, whatever. It's like, no, this will blow things up. But like, it's, yes, there's all this value in doing that. It's an interesting struggle, because I know right now we're in a time where there's a lot of demand for authentic voices, and in telling stories that are not your own is becoming problematic, and it's a debate. And like, again, my boyfriend is a writer, we talk about this a lot. It's like a writer should be able to write and find the inner character and voice of any representation, any gender, any race, anything. But clearly, like if you are white and cisgender, it's kind of like, all right, maybe like let the other people talk,
I mean, there's nothing that can't be solved by the addition of a like sensitivity reader or diversity consultant. And that is to say that obviously if jobs are not being given to minority voices to tell their own stories, that's a huge fucking problem. But it's certainly not limiting on what authors can do. The simple fact is that if they're going to do it, they should be doing it well, and they should be doing it equitably. So, for example, some of the work that I do is sensitivity reading and diversity consultancy. Like I was the reader for Lila Sturge's young readers graphic novel Girlhaven. And that's a really wonderful story about a young person who is like presenting as male, but gets sucked into this fantasy world where allegedly only girls are allowed to be there, and they have all these like struggles about their own identity and what's being said about them and what they're feeling inside and learning to accept themselves. And it's a really wonderful kind of journey into the self in a lot of ways. That I highly recommend. And that was like working on that project was really wonderful, and all the other stuff that I've done in terms of the process of reading and being able to support authors' voices to make sure that they want to do good, they want to do right by the communities they're representing, and I can step in and say something. If I can step in and say something informative about the portrayal of transness or the portrayal of gender or something to that end, then then great. This is work that that lots of people are doing.
Yeah, and it was so cool. I remember you telling me that you were doing that, and I'm like, oh, it's perfect. This is so good. And yeah, like a good writer needs to be able to tell a story well, but you're so spot on. Like, get that vetted, get that input right from wherever, but then do the work. You don't
Yeah.
just don't make assumptions, right?
And obviously, like Lila Sturges is one of the best known trans women in comics. And still, even still, I was brought
Yeah.
on to get like a second pair of eyes on it, and I guess it made a difference. So
I mean, that's yeah. I mean, I hope. I need to know more. Actually, I don't know her work, and that's to my detriment. Other than the
are you
one
sure you don't know
mentioned.
her work?
I don't think I do.
Jack of Fables, Lumberjanes.
Sorry. Yes, of course. I do know her work. Did not know the name attached to it. And that's, again, just my own myopic views. Sometimes I will say, and those, I mean, God, Fables. Oh my goodness. I remember, didn't we were at like a bar in here in Charlotte, and what's his name from Fables was hanging out and
Bill
holding
Willigum?
court. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I think we were even like some of us were caught up in that conversation, but I hadn't thought about Fables. So comics have been kind of a thing for me lately. I just have like mostly like let go of. I mean, I think we talked, but before I moved, I sold all of my comics to our mutual friend Aaron from a comic shop. Yeah. And now I kick myself because it's like, oh my God, comics have exploded because of the pandemic and people needing things that they can, hoard. Are you still like doing much as far as, I mean, like, I think after all of the pop culture absorption that you had to do, are you even like really reading much, or are you kind of like just stepping back?
Look, here's how it is. I still buy comic books. I'm not reading what I'm buying though. I gotta fix that. The pandemic, before the pandemic, I had worked at a comic shop, the comic shop here in Orlando, Florida, for I don't know, since let's say like probably 2005 or something. Like
Wow.
Behind the scenes, not working a register, but like doing behind the scenes work, and that facilitated my comic book reading habit because the new books would come in, and I would have carte blanche to read whatever, which as a journalist helped me to have a perspective on that industry. And I was doing that all the way up until the pandemic happened. And that was like, I knew that I was taking aside, like every Tuesday, I was boning up on all the comics that I wanted to bone up on, and then like could get on with my life and have that, be in the know and be enjoying myself. And then that went away. And
Yep.
now I haven't fit it back into my world, and I feel bad about that. But then also, like, the stuff I'm doing instead is it is genuinely very hard to be both a person who's creating content and someone who's consuming content. I mean, it's good, like consumption allows for inspiration, so it's super important to do. But also, I don't know, I'm extremely bad at parsing out my time. So I need to get back into it. I feel really bad. There's some stories I really want to read. I haven't read any of Sophie Campbell's Ninja Turtles, and like that is killing me.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Because you like, from so far back, as long as I've known you, like the Ninja Turtles were such an important influence and such a touchstone that would just pop back up in things that you did. Whether it was the Nerdy Show T-shirt design, which I think I still have that shirt. Yes. How do you? Yeah, you got to read it. You got to read it.
I do. I mean, like, I really do. Like, I love her work, and like having a trans author on Ninja Turtles is like so huge for me, because I feel like Turtles is like one of like the in terms of like major pop culture like things. It's like on the down low, like one of the transiest things that there is. Like because nice. Of like, I mean, granted, it's still like it comes from the world of like muscle bound action figures and dudes fighting each other, but like, but like as a kid, like I was affected by those transformational stories. Like I latched onto that big time, in a way that was, let's say, noteworthy. Um, and I didn't know why, but it was huge and important. And then and then also, I mean, just on a personal level, the comic that was for the longest time the longest running Ninja Turtles comic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures, which was published by Archie, was written by a guy named Stephen Murphy under the pen name Dean Clarraine. And the stories that he was telling were very adult, humanitarian, environmentalist stories, and those things shaped me for the better. And they were filled with strong female characters who I deeply latched onto that empowered me because I didn't like I didn't have the infrastructure I needed to be able to know myself. But when I, was able to be in amongst all of this like male centric media, but engaging with truly like honestly and powerfully written women that were not exploitive, like that was huge. And that was something that my brain noticed.
It's interesting because I actually haven't think I've ever asked someone this, who is transgender, like growing up, seeing strong male or female or other characters, which ones do you see yourself? And I have a hard time answering this myself because I didn't, to my memory, and I probably could figure it out, I didn't have like, oh well, this dude was obviously someone I related to, or this woman. I mean, like I just didn't think that way. So going back beyond that, were there other touchstones in the things you read or watched that you were like, oh yeah, this is my totem, this is the thing I see myself in?
It's super tricky, but yeah, I mean, in hindsight, anything is possible. But the fact of the matter is that like, uh, this is gonna be really fucking obvious, but Catwoman,
Oh.
was everything to me. But the hard part was that being like, assigned male at birth, I was told the only way that I could like relate to or react to that character was uh, like sexualizing her, and that sucked because that was like yeah, she's hot and like I adore that about her, but that was not the experience I was having. And then I was like trying to like train myself to have that experience because I was told I was supposed to. And that and so I had a framed picture of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman like on my wall from like 1992 onward. And and that was because I saw myself in her and I didn't know how to express that at all. And always expressed this. I felt this crazy kind of longing regarding her, but I didn't know that it was like, I didn't know what kind of longing it was, and it was a longing to like see myself. It was getting that like seeing a piece of me through a funhouse mirror and being like, what is that? That's so. There's something there, but I can't really figure out what it is. But then, like the rest of the media is telling me, here's what it is. Like it's a sexy lady, and that's it. Not like an icon.
Yeah, well, and it's yes, all of that is with the way, especially in the comic book domain, that we've overly sexualized things. But at the same time, like even now we're getting, or maybe not overly yet, but we're getting overly sexualized male and other non-binary trans. Like the comics medium seems to like to sexualize and just
there's nothing wrong with characters being sexualized. The problem is basically like the patriarchal world that we exist in, telling us like what that can be for people, and like and telling people who are coded male at birth, whether that's what they want to be or not, like how to behave towards women, and that it is always predatory.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. That's very fair. And yeah, again, comics are grotesque in many ways because of that influence. So I want to get back to some of the work you're doing that's coming up. And I know, like, the timing of this interview is like always weird because I don't always line it up with like, oh, things are coming out for who I talk to. But
there's no big thing on the horizon, but there are big things on the horizon.
And I'm excited for what you're doing coming up. But specifically, I want to talk about TRANScend because I remember when I think this started in one form and has sort of morphed over time. Is that accurate, or is it always sort of been okay?
Yeah, that's fair. So TRANScend is a forthcoming nonfiction podcast that I'm working on. It's kind of a genre bending exploration. It's autobiographical. at least in large part, documenting my transition journey, but not in any kind of like hard timeline. More a lot of the kind of the thoughts that I've had, the awakenings that I've had, the cultural epiphanies that I've had through this process. Because like the thing is that when I transitioned, like I or started that process, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. Like, I mean, I suppose no one really does, but like it was this whole thing has been true consciousness expansion. My world has peeled away. I see through the veil of humanity. And I know that sounds very lofty, but like it's like it is all of my perception of reality has changed in ways that I did not believe was possible. Um and there's a lot of different stories that I want to tell in the vicinity of like of my past and my present and potentially my future. And there's a lot of it's at this point it's become a very daunting project because I've been collecting data and writing on it very abstractly for a while now, and the pandemic definitely like sort of like things went off schedule. I don't know when it's coming out at this point, but I'm working on it. It is like to give a sense of what it's going to be like. I have interviewed lots of family and friends. I have done a bunch of like well, okay, so there's going to be archival audio clips from different things throughout my life. There's going to be new interview clips. There's going to be narration, and there's going to be audio drama segments that like dip into things. For example, um, I've had some very strange, interesting transy dreams, and I'm going to turn those into audio drama vignettes that'll like show the process of like my brain in its egg state trying to crack through. One in particular that I'm really excited about doing is I had this dream centered around the song Hounds of Love by Kate Bush that was about a wild woman living in the forest and a young boy's like expectation of coming of age and like being a man and having to like go off and leave his home in the small village, but then like meeting this wild woman in the woods and being presented with a choice of like venturing deeper into the world that she represented or like hesitating and returning to the human world. And it really touched me to have when I had this dream, but for years I didn't know what it meant, but in the end it was very very fucking clear what that dream was about. And I want to that's like the quickest version I could do. I've done it a disservice, but it's a beautiful and haunting story that I want to bring to life as sort of an exhibit of the ways that the brain is constantly trying to communicate truth to the person who's attached to that brain.
Well, no, I think that's really it's very generous and it's very intimate of you to offer this because it is so private and it is so raw, unfiltered from your brain, even if you're then crafting it and doing what to make it something else. But like that's still just really cool because I don't even know, like I don't have the experiences that you have had in terms of being just constantly evolving in that way and having your brain like not rewired but certainly influenced and changing and growing, and then the side effects of what that does for your dreams, and then the larger spiritual implications of it connecting back to previous you and future you. Like that's just so much. I'm really excited to experience that. I think that's going to be something that's really special for people to get a glimpse not only into your life, which is still really cool, but also just that journey. So I've just never heard of anyone doing anything like that. I mean, I'm sure they have, and maybe you know of other kind of similar works that kind of inspired you, but I can't think of anything quite like that.
I mean, there are a lot of really good transcentric podcasts out there, but my hope is that I'm doing this because I haven't seen it, like this specific kind of thing, and it's gonna be real tricky. It's gonna be tricky to pull this off if what happens in my head comes out into people's ears. It's going to have been an ordeal to get it there, but I'm dedicated to it because I feel really strongly about it, and I want to be that intimate about these things because I'm still I'm baffled at my own journey, if that makes any sense. Like this has been such a strange life so far, and I've felt like I was sleepwalking until suddenly, like the veil burned away and the layers peeled off and I stepped out. Like there's the the term of like egg to define a trans person before their transition is so apt, because no matter how things seemed, like the person I was a shell, and I am a different being now. I am another thing. And that's a very mind-bending prospect once you're like living that, or especially when you have to pick up the pieces of your life before and deal with the repercussions of how you've changed, and also transition, especially in this world of calamity and peril and hatred. It transition burns away your ability to give a fuck about all the different confines of society. You stop worrying about that stuff. You start being yourself. You start taking more risks because they're risks worth taking, and really treating your life as precious. I mean, I'm making a lot of generalizations here. This is my experience, but
No, I think it's commensurate with other people I know who've had journeys, and there's several things that I don't want to go into, but like, just yes, people who have never been through this experience, you don't have any frame of reference for what it is like. And I say that knowing I don't either, but having been around people like yourself who are very generous with their stories and their intimate, details of their life, I just why I'm so excited about this and other similar podcasts. Like, people need to understand this better, because I think some of the ignorance and intolerance will just necessarily burn away, like you said, because they just have now an understanding better, a deeper understanding of this process, and all of the ways that it transforms somebody, not just in the obvious, ways.
yeah.
So so excited for it. And obviously, as soon as that's out, we'll share it to the world and get as many people to find out about it. I also want to talk about your Patreon, and I don't know if you have any, if this is going to help you with this effort, but I'm going to put the link
actually,
up.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I have there's a lot. I have Patreon for Omniverse, but that's like funding things like the Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program. But my Patreon at patreon.com/Cat Blackard or catblackard.com at the moment. That will be a different website soon. But that goes directly towards funding TRANScend. Like that project is going to be published through Omniverse, but the production of it is being funded specifically through my personal Patreon. That's going to help me like hire the sound designers and get the musicians and take the plane trips to do the interviews and all the other things that I want to do to really make sure that this lands and we get to tell the biggest, like, craziest stories.
I'm excited. I think that there's some really cool legs for this project, and I want to see it like evolve and launch, and then maybe even like transition into something else. I feel like there's some really cool stuff that people are going to really dig and be excited about. So I am not a patron yet, but I'm going to sign up because I love supporting my friends, and I want everyone to go to catblackard.com again for now. And if you check this out later and you can't find it, we'll get you the link. It's
it'll always, catblackard.com will always take you where you need to go in terms of my stuff. So there's that.
Perfect.
The other thing I'm up to is I can't really say too much about this, and there's lots of things, like there's lots of variables where this might not happen. But I'm currently also writing some comic books, and I'm excited about where that could go. There's like it's very early on, but I'm writing some stuff that's really really out there, and I'm really surprised that anybody took me up on this. Because if the stuff that I'm writing actually gets made, it is going to be a buck wild time in folks' comic stores. When it happens, I will not be coy about it. I will tell you exactly what it is. But for now, I'm just like it's very exciting to be stepping into a space where I can like I am writing professionally for a fiction, like as myself, and not being beholden to interviews and journalism and stuff like that stuff. Like I really love my journalistic work. I really deeply do. But it got to the point where it sort of when you're beholden to the news cycle, it just kind of traps you. So it's nice to be free.
It's gotten so much worse since, the days of the paper and the deadline, even if it was every day, now it's every hour. It's nonstop.
when we started Nerdy Show, it was like, oh, it was so novel to have a podcast that was about like all things nerdy, and then nerd culture became all of pop culture, which is great.
Yes.
But like suddenly what we were doing got a lot harder, and then like our capacity to have like any kind of
relevance.
Like, that got
Yeah.
really challenging too.
Oh my
so,
God.
Yeah,
Well, it's funny because, like, you know, even when Flame On started, things were starting to tilt that way. And we were doing it once a month at first, you know, and then over time, you know, I think when Pat sort of took the reins, we got going every other week. And even then, like, shit changes on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. I mean, you know, we have these major outlets that are now just dedicated full time, like our very own Josh Yale at IGN. Like this is their full time job to keep up with this and make content about this. Pop culture roundups are great and they're fun, but oh my God, I just it's tilting at windmills is what it is.
Yeah, and mostly like, you know, capitalism is really ugly, and we all as individuals, as sentient beings, as humans, especially are fueled by narratives and our capacity to tell them, and what we do with the narratives that we take in, and we have to kind of relearn how to really feel about media as a culture right now, I think, because there's quite simply too much of it, and there is an awful lot of good stuff as much as there is like a lot of like, you know, meaningless crap. And which isn't to like, you know, pass judgment on anything. There's just, you know, like I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, major motion pictures are first and foremost products. And that is, they can be artful products, but ultimately they are products and they have to fill obligations to, like corporate overlords, which limits what they can be and like the statements they can make and all sorts of other things. Like everything that is guaranteed to make money has to be guaranteed to make money and is focus grouped into the ground. And it can still be remarkable in spite of that, but it is remarkable in spite of that.
Right.
Which is why, you know, I don't know where the human world is headed, but, you know, narratives will always be a part of us, and we need to focus on the things that are most genuine to us and the things that truly enrich our lives, and not be worried about being consumers. And not, I as a young person, really, really, really absorbed the statement "collect 'em all." Like when, like on the backs of, you know, the Ninja Turtles blister cards, I got all those action figures, which I have also sold to Aaron. Like as much as I love them, like I must let them go. We don't need to, like, as nerds, we like are engineered towards being pack rats. But I think that's something that we also need to let go of, because there's simply too much, and we're being taken advantage of. It's important to like latch on to the stories and icons and things that empower us specifically, and think about who we are and how we can be our best selves out in the world, and let the things that we love influence us. And even if it's just downtime, like, I mean, I recognize I'm talking about some pretty serious stuff in regards to, like, you know, like, you know, any fandoms, like, but if it empowers you, then it's important, and it's cool to zero in on that. But I guess, like, I see the potential for corruptive power in adhering to these like cultural practices of nerddom, because I myself have been a part of it.
Right.
And really think that there's an opportunity for us all to kind of reflect a bit more and be true to ourselves, and also, like, you know, and support artists and projects that are the most meaningful to us, rather than just, you know, feeding into the corporate overlords who make the big productions.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So, you know, buy local, that whole idea, like literally get out into your communities, find the artists, even if they're not local, but they're people you connect with that are not necessarily going to be the big names that you would, you know, stumble upon on an IGN or whatever.
When you can go to conventions again, go to small comic book conventions.
Oh my God, like Heroes Con. Yeah.
like Heroes Con or North Carolina Comic Con.
Oh, yes.
Like funky places where you can actually interface with creators and with indie comic book producers and any stuff like that. Like that's really like meaningful. Like, but
Mm.
if you're going to like a big, I mean, hey, go to Wizard World and meet the celebrities you like. That's cool too. But there's a real opportunity to connect and grow in different, more meaningful ways outside of what the
Yeah.
well, you know, a lot of there was one time years ago, it must have been, I don't know, 2016 at least. I went to San Diego Comic-Con and I watched Grant Morrison talk.
Ugh.
And they were really inspiring, but I came away from it being like, this whole thing is completely fucked and maybe I should stop being a journalist. I didn't do that. I kept going for a while, but ultimately that ended up being what happened. Because like San Diego Comic-Con can be a lot of fun, but it's not fun because of like the long lines to spend money to spend more money. It's fun because it just happens to be a melting pot of the people who are there. The people are whether they're the attendees or the creators are the only reason to be there, and the stuff is just an excuse. It's important to share community and share love, and like my work as a nerd journalist has always been about talking about the things that I love and celebrating what works and what doesn't work, and the even if we're talking about major franchises and stuff, like all the years I spent like as a Star Wars journalist, like that was a really wonderful practice, while like in terms of like bonding with my friends and talking about the art of storytelling and talking about the collaborative storytelling that was being done through this like major like company, while it was self-destructing what was previously a creator-owned, like, troubled, but ultimately, like, beautiful institution, has become a pretty big fucking mess in a lot of ways. And that was a very both beautiful and disheartening journey, but a necessary one. And I think bonding over these things is really important and good. It's just something that we all should, consider our place in, and consider our responsibilities, and consider what, if any like addictive components of our personalities have been tapped into, so that we can like let all that go and just be our best selves, and actually, be concerned with stuff that we love and not things that we don't love anymore. It's okay to like break up with a franchise,
That is so powerful, and I wish more people like let themselves break up with it. I mean, like I said, I stopped reading most comics. I still read X-Men. I still read, some stuff, but like, I broke up with comics when I moved. And even though I've been to LCSs here in Seattle and some other cities, as I've been able to travel, like I don't anticipate getting back into that habit. And, not because I
But you
don't
might
love
pick
the
up a
medium.
really good trade here and there. You might pick up a really good graphic novel.
Well,
You might get a couple indie books in you, and that's all
exactly.
good and well.
I want to, and I want to focus my time now on those
Yes, focus.
on especially queer comics and anything that is eh, worth experiencing, as opposed to the ongoing adventures of even the X-Men. Like, if there's good queer X-Men stories, that's still great. In fact, I am happy at
And
least
boy,
that,
are there ever.
oh my God, so much. I'm glad DC and Marvel both are doing Pride issues, and this trend is continuing and all that. But I really am excited more about, there's a new queer character, that there's a new queer storyline coming out outside of Marvel and DC, by a creator-owned work. My dear friend and non-binary artist made a trip, and their web Patreon-based comic that they're doing. Like those kind of things are way more, what I want to share and focus on with my time, So I'm very excited for you to be putting your stamp on the world in comics, and I can't wait. And I all appendages are crossed that your that journey is successful, and that when those come out, like it's gonna blow up everything and get you on the cover of Bleeding Cool or whatever. I mean, whatever.
That's not ultimately, that's not what I'm here for. Like I'm here because I want to tell a bunch of really weird stories that are, like the stories will do what they do. Like all of us have the capacity in us to anything we put out in the world, any energy, even if it's just making a really good pizza, is really meaningful. And this is the thing that I'm good at. So I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna try to do it, and
I'm excited.
and see what good things come from it.
I want more of your voice in the world. So if that takes a comic or your podcast or whatever it is, I want to support that. I want to see that happen. And I'm so excited for what you are doing. Again, if you want to support Cat in her efforts, catblackard.com will get you there in addition to other sites. And I really am so glad that we've had this journey together for the last 10 years or a little more, but like, even though we're on different coasts now, and even though, we're kind of spreading ourselves apart from our normally amazing adventures together, I feel like there's so much more in store, and I'm so excited for everything that is to come. And please,
Maybe
please,
someday
please.
there'll be another Moogfest, you never know.
Oh my God, would that be not glorious? Actually, you know what I want to do? I want to get you out here for this Velocity event that's coming. They've already had one, but they hadn't had one since because of the pandemic. It is a proto Moogfest level sort of electronic music festival with
I'm listening.
workshops and concerts both. Yeah, it's here in Seattle in October. I don't know if they'll do one this year or not, but I'm telling friends that, like, if you're interested in this kind of thing right now, with things restarting, this is hopefully a thing that could, and the first one was very successful, so I'm really hoping. But anyway, I thank you so much for your time on this show, and all the opportunities that you've given me to get my voice out there, and being, as I now call you, the elfin godmother of Flame On, because even though, we had this thing where you were never really part of the core cast, which was totally my own stupid mistake. Because I think
Brian,
your voice...
I didn't know I was queer for a really long time. I think it's okay.
I know. We talked about this, but I mean, at the same time, I want to make sure I give you as much credit as I can for making Flame On exist and bringing what I saw as this weird little queer bunch of kids talking about their favorite comics and giving us a platform to do that, and giving that out, putting that out into the world, and supporting us for the, certainly the lean times where, when not very few people were probably listening. So I really appreciate it.
I mean, it's a joy. It's always been a joy to work with you. So, like, I'm here for it always.
Aw. Well, again, catblackard.com. Please go check her out. And as soon as there is more exciting news, we'll talk about it. We will be featuring you. We'll have you back on. We're going to spread the good word. But please be good. And I'm just so excited for what's to come. Uh-oh. And on that, there you go.
I'm not frozen. I just wasn't sure if we were out or not.
Oh, no. We were doing, oh my God, what's the TV show where they did like the freeze at the end and then the credits rolled, but they actually hadn't stopped filming? It wasn't a freeze. They were just like,
I do not know.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't Naked Gun. It was a Police Squad. I think they did that. Anyway, sorry. But again, yes, thanks for watching, everyone. And we will be back hopefully next week. Stay tuned. We'll see who we can find. And thank you again, Kat. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now we're out.